The movie begins with two young girls, Furiosa and Valkyrie, joyfully picking apples from a tree. Their moment of tranquility is disrupted when they notice a gang nearby. Furiosa quickly sneaks over to the gang's motorcycles, trying to disable them to stop their escape. While she works on the bikes, one of the gang members spots her. Reacting fast, she stabs him in the leg and runs away, calling out to her mother, Mary. The townspeople, led by Mary, quickly mobilize. They see the gang capturing Furiosa and riding off on their motorcycles. Mary and her companion immediately give chase, firing shots and eventually knocking one of the gang members off his bike. Mary seizes the fallen gang member's motorcycle, tells her companion to head back to the village to protect it, and continues the pursuit. She manages to take down another gang member, but two of them, including the one holding Furiosa. Mary follows them until they reach their hideout. From a distance, she eliminates another gang member with her sniper rifle, leaving only the one holding Furiosa. The last gang member manages to drag Furiosa into the hideout. We soon learn that the gang is led by a man named Dementis. Dementis' men interrogate the gang member who captured Furiosa, curious about where he found her, as healthy girls are a rare sight in these times. The gang member claims he found Furiosa in a resource-rich area and offers to reveal its location if he can meet Dementis first to take the credit. Dementis' men agree, realizing that they are close to discovering Furiosa's village. Acting quickly, Furiosa slits the gang member's throat and severely injures him. Dementis' men take Furiosa to their leader and explain the situation. Dementis orders a health check on Furiosa, confirming that she's in good condition. He then asks to see the gang member who captured her, but the man is already dying and unable to reveal the village's location before he passes away. Dementis decides to keep Furiosa, planning to use her to locate and eventually conquer her village. He instructs two of his men and a woman to take Furiosa to a tent and look after her. Meanwhile, Mary disguises herself to blend in with the gang and sneaks into the tent where Furiosa is held. She swiftly kills the two men guarding Furiosa. The woman pleads for her life and Mary spares her, taking Furiosa and escaping on a motorcycle. However, the woman alerts the gang about Furiosa's escape with her mother. The gang quickly mobilizes, firing at Mary and causing some gasoline she was carrying to ignite. Mary's clothes catch fire, but she quickly extinguishes the flames and continues her escape with Furiosa. Mary gets injured by fire, bleeding heavily, which allows Dementis to track them. Determined to save Furiosa, Mary decides to sacrifice herself. She tells Furiosa that she will fight Dementis' men to buy her time to escape. She gives her a seed, asking her to plant it in their homeland when she returns. After ensuring Furiosa leaves, Mary engages Dementis' men, managing to kill several before they ultimately overpower her. Furiosa sees what is happening from a distance and returns to save her mother. Tragically, Dementis captures her and kills her mother in front of her in a heart-wrenching scene of torture. The next day, Dementis and his men gather at a random location with Furiosa tied up and locked in an iron cage. One of Dementis' men had attempted to escape, and as punishment, Dementis had his limbs tied to motorcycles, forcing his men to fight each other to the death. The winner gets to ride the motorcycle and tear off the escapee's limbs. After witnessing this brutality, Furiosa realizes that Dementis and his men are insane and the coming days will be a grueling ordeal. The following day, Dementis moves out in search of food and water. Furiosa is still in her cage alongside an old man, the History Man. The historian offers to teach Furiosa to write, but she refuses. However, that night, Furiosa begins to teach herself to write in secret. The next day, they encounter a strange man standing injured on the road. The man believes he has entered heaven upon seeing them. Curious, Dementis asks the man about his life. He reveals that he lived in the castle, ruled by Immortan Joe, who has unnatural control over his people. The man believes he died defending Joe and thus entered heaven. Dementis learns from the man that the castle has abundant food and water, so they convince him to lead them to the castle. Dementis arrives at the castle and declares his mission to liberate the people from the tyrant Immortan, who has shackled them in oppression. He calls upon the people to unite with him in their quest for freedom, but is met with silence. Immortan's assistant challenges Dementis to choose anyone from Immortan's men. Dementis points to one and Immortan orders the man to take his own life. The man complies willingly. The assistant then proclaims that Immortan's men are prepared to die for him at any moment. Just then, Immortan's sons, Scrotus and Rictus Erectus, confront Dementis, warning him that he and his men are doomed. Without hesitation, Immortan's forces launch a fierce attack on Dementis and his soldiers. In the ensuing battle, many of Dementis' men are slain. Amidst the chaos, some of Immortan's warriors attempt to capture Furiosa, but Dementis swiftly intervenes, managing to escape with her. After these harrowing events, Dementis and his surviving men spot a truck transporting food to a city called Gastown from Immortan's castle. Seizing the opportunity, Dementis' men hijack the truck and successfully take control of Gastown, a crucial hub of fuel resources. With Gaston under their control, Dementis and his men, along with the city's leader, advance towards Immortan's castle. Dementis proposes a deal to Immortan. He can either destroy Gaston and all its fuel, or allow Dementis and his men to reside there and supply Immortan with fuel in exchange for food and water, as the previous ruler had done. Immortan agrees to the deal on the condition that Furiosa becomes one of his wives in the hope of bearing a healthy child, something his current wives have failed to do. Despite his feelings for Furiosa, Dementis agrees, prioritizing the agreement over his emotions. Later, Immortan's men take Furiosa and place her among his wives, despite his wives being in good health. Immortan has been unable to father a healthy child, with offspring suffering from various health issues or deformities. Furiosa resolves that she will not remain in this place or become Immortan's wife. She begins cutting her hair, preparing for her escape. That night, Rictus arrives and drags her to a room with ill intentions, but Furiosa manages to escape, disappearing into the shadows. Rictus, knowing the consequences of assaulting a potential Immortan wife, keeps her escape a secret. Years later, Immortan's men lower a suspended car, revealing a significantly grown-up Furiosa among them. Disguised as a boy, she has been hiding in plain sight as one of Immortan's soldiers, biding her time. When the suspended car threatens to fall, Furiosa climbs onto it, securing it and earning the crew's respect. Soon after, Furiosa and the crew work on constructing a massive truck intended for transporting food and supplies for trade. She learns the truck will soon depart, driven by a man named Jack, and sees this as her chance to escape. Once the truck is ready, it leaves the castle with Jack at the wheel and Furiosa hidden inside. However, bandits ambush the convoy, attacking to seize the truck and its contents. Amidst the chaos, Furiosa realizes the truck is severely damaged and at risk of exploding. She works to repair it while fending off the attackers. As Jack's men fight back, more waves of bandits attack, growing stronger each time. A group of bandits with propellers on their backs arrives, dropping bombs on the truck. Furiosa repairs the truck just enough and reveals herself to Jack. Jack accepts her help as she fights alongside him. She takes down a bandit, dropping fire on the truck, and pulls another one with a propeller towards the truck, ending his threat. After defeating the bandits, Furiosa points a gun at Jack, demanding control of the truck. Jack fights back, throwing her out and driving away, leaving Furiosa alone in the desert. Moments after, Jack returns to Furiosa and explains that even if he gives her the truck, there's nowhere safe to escape to. The only viable places are Gaston or the castle, both controlled by Immortan Joe or Dementis. Furiosa points the gun at Jack. Jack, recognizing her resolve, admits he's lost many men, and he admires her for defending him in the truck. He proposes the deal. She joins him as his assistant, and he'll teach her everything about survival and the roads. This way, she might eventually find a way to escape. Convinced, Furiosa agrees to go with him. Soon, Jack and Furiosa become a convoy team and head to Gaston. It turns out that Gaston is a vast city filled with people working as slaves to extract oil. After delivering their goods, they receive fuel in return. A local informs Jack that Dementis is causing chaos and starving the population, with a war brewing against him. Jack, uninterested in the conflict, takes a requested weapon and gives it to Furiosa for self-defense should she choose to escape. As days pass, Jack and Furiosa return to Gaston with more food, expecting fuel in exchange. This time, Dementis himself confronts them, refusing to trade fuel for the meager food supply. Jack, without argument, decides to leave with the food. The desperate residents on the brink of violence are held back by Dementis, who allows them to leave. Jack returns to Immortan Joe and his men, explaining the situation. Enraged, Immortan Joe decides to wage war against Dementis, but plans it strategically. He knows that sending his entire army would result in destruction, including the fuel. He opts to fight through Jack's team. Furiosa is pleased, eager for revenge against Dementis for her mother's death. Several days later, Jack's team heads to Gaston, where they face fierce resistance from Dementis' men, who kill anyone in their path. Amid the chaos, Dementis arrives to assess the situation. Furiosa attempts to smite Dementis, but fails. In retaliation, Dementis fires a rocket, which doesn't kill Furiosa, but causes her to fall from her position. Seizing the moment, Jack helps Furiosa into a car, and they flee as the rest of their team lies dead. However, Dementis relentlessly pursues them and eventually captures them both. After their capture, Dementis secures Furiosa to prevent her escape while his men torment Jack using their bikes. Once they have finished torturing and killing Jack, Dementis turns his attention to Furiosa only to discover she has escaped by cutting off her hand. Furiosa flees toward Immortan's castle, with Dementis and his men in hot pursuit. Despite their efforts, Furiosa eludes them. Exhausted, she dismounts the bike, walks until she collapses and passes out. When Furiosa awakens, she finds herself in an unfamiliar cave, alongside an elderly woman surrounded by dismembered human bodies. Horrified, she quickly departs and returns to Immortan. She recounts her experience and warns him of an impending attack by Dementus. Enraged, Immortan dispatches his army to confront Dementus. As days go by, a fierce battle erupts between Immortan and Dementus, with heavy losses on both sides. During this tumultuous period, Furiosa crafts a new iron prosthetic hand to replace the one she lost. Once completed, she joins forces with Immortan's soldiers and requests a vehicle to aid in the conflict. They provide her with a poorly maintained car, which she drives to a location where many of Immortan's men are gathered. Immortan's forces manage to kill many of Dementus' soldiers, forcing him to retreat with his remaining troops. Upon learning of this, Furiosa steals Rictus's car and chases after Dementus. She tracks him and his followers, taking down several of them. In response, Dementus orders his men to scatter to confuse her. Furiosa follows one of the groups, mistakenly thinking Dementus is among them, but he is not. After dealing with them, she resumes her search for Dementus. Eventually, she finds him and Dementus tries to flee. Furiosa calmly follows him in the car until he becomes exhausted and gives up. She steps out of the vehicle and confronts him, asking if he remembers her. Dementus acknowledges her, but as he speaks, he suddenly tries to stab her. Furiosa quickly counters by striking him in the face, knocking him out. When Dementus regains consciousness, Furiosa relentlessly reminds him of the traumatic event from 15 years ago, when he murdered her mother in front of her. Dementus initially doesn't recall her mother, which only fuels Furiosa's anger as she continues to beat him, demanding that you remember. Eventually, his memory returns, but Furiosa's rage only grows. She accuses him of destroying her childhood and demands that he make amends. Feeling helpless, Dementus tells her to do whatever she wants, admitting he can't change the past. Furiosa, filled with a sense of purpose, decides to end his life. The exact details of his death remain a mystery. Some say she shot him on the spot, while others claim she crucified him, echoing her mother's fate. There are also stories of her dragging him behind a car or sealing him in a cave to decay. In one version, a tree grew from his remains and Furiosa would visit it occasionally to pick its fruit, symbolizing his eternal suffering. Years later, Furiosa joins forces with Immortan's wives, planning their escape. Together, they hide in a massive truck, bringing the movie to its conclusion. That's a wrap on today's movie recap. If you've enjoyed the breakdown and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what movie you'd like me to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.